Hello and welcome. Acer is one of the leading gaming brands on the market, and this year they've brought something a little special. The Predator Helios lineup of gaming laptops not only gets a facelift, but some work has been done under the hood to help beef up their capabilities to handle the power of the RTX 4000 series laptop GPUs. The laptop I'm reviewing today is equipped with the RTX 4080 12GB GPU. Can it hit the full promised 165 watts as stated on Acer's specifications page? Or will this be another repeat of the 4070, 4060, and 4050 controversy? Alright, reviewing the specs of this device quickly, we've got an Intel i9-13900HX 24-core 32-thread CPU. We've got 32GB of DDR5 RAM at 4800MHz running in dual channel mode, a 1TB PCIe NVMe Gen 4 SSD. We've got a 16-inch QHD plus 240Hz G-Sync IPS display. This is not the mini LED version that is yet to make its way to market, and keep in mind that the mini LED is billed as 250 Hz. That is a differentiating factor in how you can quickly tell whether or not you're looking at the mini LED version or there's just a standard IPS model there. So I had some confusion with that. Be sure not to make the same mistake. We're equipped with an NVIDIA RTX 4080 12GB GPU with a max TGP that's in this device of 165 watts, 10 less than the 175 watts in the Alienware M18 and the larger 18-inch models, but alas 10 watts less than the maximum potential for the RTX 4080 with the 150 watt TGP from NVIDIA plus 25 watts of configurable dynamic boost. We've got killer gigabit Ethernet on board. We've got killer Wi-Fi as well. And keep in mind, killer has been bought by Intel. So essentially you're looking at Intel parts that are co-branded, and then also have some tuning from killer software to help deliver a better experience and optimize for gaming and low latency and whatnot. So we've got killer Wi-Fi 6E on board, 802.11x with Bluetooth 5.2, per key RGB backlit keyboard. We've got the full HD 1080p 30fps webcam, a 90 watt hour battery, 330 watt power adapter, and weighing in at 2.6 kilograms or roughly 5.7 pounds. And the pricing as of the shooting of this video was $34.99 Canadian or $24.99 US dollars. Display. There was some initial confusion when I was ordering this device. When I purchased my Predator Helios 16, I was sure that I was getting the mini LED offering, as that is a new thing for 2023 with these laptops. However, if you don't pay attention to detail, you might make the same mistake that I did. The key here is that the IPS display panel, which I have here, is the 240 Hz offering, while the mini LED model runs at 250 Hz. A small but important detail. Further, the mini LED model is not actually available on the market yet, at least not in the USA or Canada as of the time of this filming. I may pick one up again when the mini LED arrives, but for now, I won't be holding on to the standard IPS display. It's not what I had intended to order and keep. That said, however, this is still a very good display with 500 nits of brightness and 240 Hz refresh rate with G-Sync on board. The gaming and visual experience is actually very good. You won't have any issues enjoying any of your games in most types of lighting conditions except maybe bright outdoors and direct sunlight. The 500 nits of brightness helps to give the image a little pop and to add some depth as it brings out the extra contrast helps to bring out the shadows and bring up the highlights. I do have one complaint though. When you lower the brightness on this device below 50%, it does start to dim rather quickly, and the uniformity of the backlight can be called into question. This may not be an issue for many people, and especially if you plan on using it indoors or in well-lit environments. If you do plan to use this, however, in the dark or low-lag environments or getting work done at night, this may be an issue, perhaps even a deal breaker for you. Still, the QHD Plus resolution at 2560 by 1600 pixels is also a great plus this year in many gaming laptops. The extra sharpness of the image and text as well as higher resolution gameplay are really a joy like never before. Prior to the RTX 3000 series, this wasn't really possible with the exception of the flagship mobile GPUs, and now it's just becoming more mainstream. If you're just getting into a gaming laptop and you go for a QHD Plus display, I can assure you that you won't be disappointed with their gaming chops. This is a webcam test and audio test with the built-in microphones and the built-in webcam that is in this Predator Helios 16 for 2023. This is indeed a 1080p offering that runs at 30 FPS. So I think it looks pretty good actually with really good lighting and studio lighting. You can actually have a really nice experience, and it's going to be great for video conferencing and also for meetings as well. You shouldn't have any issues. And the audio on this device, how do you think it is? Please let me know compared to some of the professional microphones that I'm using. Of course, I think it's very, very usable for meetings, and I have been using it for meetings and teleconferencing. I have not had any complaints thus far, and it's actually been pretty good. It also does pretty well with noise rejection in the ambient environment. So if you have a little bit of noise or some, hissing or whatnot, background noise, ambient noise, it does pretty well to turn that off. What do you think of the webcam and the sound from the microphones that are built into this device? Let me know in the comments below. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Connectivity-wise, Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 in this Predator Helios 16 performed very well. I did not have any download or upload speed issues. It was a consistent performer. The typical scenario is that Windows not being able to capture and switch Bluetooth output devices when connecting true wireless headphones is still an issue. Other than that, the connections were quick, stable, and held on consistently. If anything, I would say the killer tuning gives this device a slight edge. The killer Ethernet for sure was a consistently fast performer, downloading at incredible and consistent speeds, reaching nearly the full gigabit bandwidth for longer sustained transfers as well. And the killer brand is now a part of the Intel family, and if you look here, the two featured Ethernet and Wi-Fi adapters in this device are actually based on Intel technology themselves. We have a killer E2600 gigabit Ethernet controller for networked traffic, and we have a killer Wi-Fi 6E AX1675i, which is actually based on the Intel AX211 chip. So essentially you're getting Intel parts with a little bit of killer intelligence added on top. And if you look at the killer control panel, there is lots to dig through here. You could spend tons and tons of hours just basically going through and analyzing all kinds of things and figuring out what's happening, so you can really tune your experience with Wi-Fi and your Ethernet experience as well. Battery life. Equipped with a 90 watt-hour battery and the usual testing with my developer workflow, which includes multiple browsers with numerous tabs, communication tools, multiple IDEs, Docker containers, Windows subsystem for Linux, and multiple PowerShells running with apps in debug and developer modes, I was able to achieve 4.5 hours from this device. In between the other offerings, but I believe this is due to the lower power draw from the 16-inch display versus its larger 17-inch and 18-inch equipped gaming laptops with similar battery sizes. A decent performer overall. Speakers and sound. I've chosen to omit the speakers and sound section of this review because I found them to be quite mediocre. If you have the fans blasting in this device, which gets well above 60 decibels at max fan speeds, you're not going to be able to hear the audio. Even at 100% cranked on the speakers, it's so tinny and it's going to be so washed out by the fan noise that it's basically unusable. If you do have the fans, however, in quiet mode, it gets loud enough to enjoy a movie night experience by yourself, or have a late night, enjoy a late night show while you're in bed before you head off to sleep. Other than that, there's really nothing much to be said about speakers. It's the usual on the bottom of the device, two speakers facing towards the table and outwards offering, and it doesn't do anything special. Acer has not made any strides here in this department. Perhaps next year we can look forward to something improved in terms of sounds into the sound and speakers from this device. Thermals and fan noise. If you're wondering where's the thermals and fan noise section of this review, I've now extracted that to a separate video on my channel in order to ensure that this video does not get long. The quick and short summary of the thermals and fan noise is this device gets very loud at max fans. It can be better at auto. It can be even better if you tune it using the custom fan mode and turning down the GPU and the CPU fan to the level of performance that you desire. You can even tune it to balance or eco modes from the Predator Sense software to have nearly a silent gaming experience with fairly acceptable frame rates and gameplay depending on what type of game you are playing. As for thermals, this device runs very messy and very hot out of the box. When I ran it initially and started doing my game testing and benchmarking, I was consistently seeing the CPU hit 100C before I was throttling back down, and the GPU itself was hitting its thermal throttle limit of 86 degrees Celsius. Not a good experience out of the box and definitely needs some tuning. Even the Predator Sense presets that are defined in the software are not really doing very much, as they're really letting all of the CPU and GPU components hit their thermal thresholds, and basically you're just losing performance on the table. So, however, that is not the optimal experience for gaming on this laptop. You can, however, tune the thermals down very nicely by adjusting the way that the fans are running and you can also use the PL1 and PL2 limits using the Intel Extreme Tuning utility to keep those things under check. For a more detailed and in-depth look at both of these things, thermals and fan noise, please head over to my channel and look at the other videos that I've done covering these specific topics in much more depth. Alright, as for the CPU benchmarks on this device, it's featuring the Intel i9-13900HX 24-core and 32-thread CPU. I've done extensive benchmarking on that in other laptops, including the Alienware M18R1. Please refer to those reviews for more detailed information, but it's basically the same story here with very little difference. And here's just a quick look at some of the benchmarks that I've run on this device. The Predator Helios 16 I'm reviewing is equipped with an RTX 4080 with 12GB of VRAM, and according to Acer specs, should run at a max TGP of 165 watts. Initially, when I began testing and benchmarking, I was not seeing much beyond 140 watts. I was confused, as the other 4080s I've tested were indeed hitting the full power and performing as designed. So I had to dig a little deeper to uncover the truth. Various benchmarks, different settings, and playing with power modes in Predator Sense were exhausting. After having spent nearly 20 hours on testing games and benchmarking this laptop, I've realized this. The Predator Sense software doesn't define presets that are optimally tuned for gaming. It's sad to state, but I believe this is the truth. I was able to uncover this when I decided to explore Intel's Extreme Tuning utility for adjusting the PL1 and PL2 power limits for the Intel CPU. In addition, the shared heat pipe design and lack of a vapor chamber is a complete miss in my opinion. At this price range and class of device, the vapor chamber is almost a requirement in 2023. It'll be interesting to see how some of the 16-inch competitors equipped with a 4080 or even a 4090 perform. I'm waiting to get my hands on the Lenovo Legion 7i Pro and the Alienware X16R1 in particular. Get subscribed to the channel and stay tuned so you don't miss those and the comparisons with other 4080 equipped laptops when they arrive. Alright, back to the story of the GPU. I was intrigued when I ran Assetto Corsa, a racing game, and saw it perform well above and close to the marketed 165 watts of the 4080 in this laptop. I started to dig a bit further. In my testing with Intel's XTU tuning and the testing with PL1 and PL2 between 28 and 65 watts, I was able to discover that the power levels were somehow tied to each other as the thermals were neck and neck and well below the thermal throttling that they were exhibiting out of the box. At around 50 watts for PL1 and 55 watts for PL2, I was able to achieve about 4 GHz clock speeds on the CPU, and the thermal headroom was enough to finally push the GPU to about 155 to 160 watts in some games. I did not have time to test an exhaustive selection of games. However, the ones I did test were The Witcher 3 with DLSS plus frame generation and ray tracing enabled, Cyberpunk 2077 with overdrive preset, which includes path tracing, Red Dead Redemption 2 with DLSS and ultra settings, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Hogwarts Legacy. With the exception of the last two, the former three games demonstrated the GPU reaching higher power levels close to the advertised 165 watts than with the canned presets in Predator Sense. Shadow of the Tomb Raider did hit 150 to 155 watts for parts of the benchmark, but was very scene dependent and seemed very optimized, just not stressing the GPU enough in other scenes. This was despite SMAA set to 4x, ray tracing shadows enabled, and all of their settings to ultra or their highest. In Hogwarts Legacy, with ray tracing and settings to ultra, and testing with and without DLSS and frame generation, yielded mixed results. The gameplay was still choppy and the stuttery due to the game's poor optimization, and thus was not a good candidate to show consistently 140 watts plus power levels are possible in this device. Also, in synthetic benchmarking, particularly with FurMark, the GPU did hit the full power and demonstrate 165 watts of power consistently. But since that's not an actual game, but more of a stress test, take that as you will. I think Acer needs to really tune their presets and give us the fine-grained controls like Asus and Alienware have, so that we may manually adjust the CPU and the GPU to get the best performance out of this device. As I've mentioned now several times, the cooling system in this laptop, despite not being a vapor chamber, is still quite capable, as those fans spin very high at well above 6,000 RPM and push massive amounts of air. And with the 4 vents, 2 on the back, 2 on the sides of this device, there's more than enough room for airflow to keep the GPU and the CPU in check. It's unfortunate then that Acer doesn't quantify any of their presets, nor allow us to dig in to see what's happening under the hood. This does not mean though that you cannot have a good gaming experience with this device. In fact, in balance mode or even in eco mode with GPU throttle to 100 watts, you can have a near silent gaming experience with acceptable frame rates. And with enabling DLSS plus frame generation, you could hit a near 60 FPS log to enjoy many slower paced games such as Red Dead Redemption 2. And that isn't something to be taken lightly and impressive on its own merit. Still, to see yet another device that doesn't live up to expectations out of the box without the buyer having to tinker with such a price and class of device is a shame. Value and conclusion. In my opinion, this is actually quite the capable machine. I really enjoyed my time with the display, despite the brightness and uniformity issues, and it not being the mini LED that I had hoped for, but the 240Hz G-Sync provides a buttery smooth experience in any game. In addition, the device is built well, hefty, and equipped with a great selection of ports for most folks. The keyboard and trackpad are pretty nice as well, as is the RGB offering. The styling may not be for everyone, but I like the new direction that most gaming laptops are heading. Classy, but with a touch of sass and not over the top so as to be out of place in the office. The thermals and fan noise can be kept in check if you're willing to do a bit of tuning and aren't looking for chart-topping frame rates. It is possible to have a great overall experience with the Predator Helios 16 with a bit of effort, care, and love to get all the settings just right. The unfortunate part is that Acer's control center software, Predator Sense, still doesn't offer enthusiast level control and has no support for undervolting your CPU, nor overclocking your GPU. This is a miss for the intended audience, and I hope that Acer listens and corrects this soon via software updates. As for the price, I believe it is in the ballpark with similar devices. However, if that's a good value or not will depend overall on what you're looking for in a laptop, and particularly a gaming laptop, and whether the feature set on offer here is pleasing enough for you to push to part with that sweet cash from your wallet. It will be interesting to follow, however, the story around the Predator Helios 16 as it develops over the year, as more and more RTX 4000 series laptops make it onto the scene. But if you were to pull the trigger today, I don't think you'd be at a loss and would most likely have a great time. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like and subscribe to the channel and share across your social media channels to help grow this channel. See you in the next one.